Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Centre. This is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is Sparta!
All your days are belong to us.
It's a trap 9000!
Dr. Octagonicus. Leave Benny alone!
Leroy Dragon!
The balls are inert.
Time to
And now it begins.
Okay, everybody, it is Saturday here on Phoenix 92.5 FM. Apologies for starting late, but we are incredibly overcome with technical issues. My name is Dan O'Connor and I'm joined on the line by Mr. Bryn O'Rourke. How are you, Bryn?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
Stressed out. Stressed out.
I bet,
not gonna lie. Whole new desk here, guys. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is for the podcast listeners, the remainder of the show is going to be tacked on there. It's the culmination of the panel from DCC from March. So that's something to continue to check out for. Anyway, we have a lot to get through this week. We're joined a little bit later on in the show by Olivia Fahy. We recorded earlier on, so that's going to be rounding out the show. But before we get into that, Bryn, there's a lot to talk about from the world of nerd and pop culture. Comic Con was this week. A lot of weird news broke. So let's get into it. Let's get into the first story. The first story was, of course, with James Gunn.
Yeah.
And what's going on there? Yeah.
Yeah. So, the basic rundown of the story is that James Gunn, about around the time that he got signed on to Guardians of the Galaxy, he deleted around in the range of 10,000 tweets, some of which got recovered recently, and they're a bit of the off-color variety, you would say.
Yeah.
Very much the kind of humor that you would have seen in any of the films that James Gunn made while he was getting famous. But that was very much for that reason Disney fired him. Yeah. And there's a lot of people who've been saying that, well, he got fired mainly because they just bought Fox and they need to keep face because, you know.
Just to recap, a lot of what James Gunn's humor is based in the Trauma films, and the Trauma films can be very edgy, not to everyone's taste. But Bryn, is that kind of where you're going with that?
Yeah, it's just very much a case of like the kind of humor that he was using was very much in vogue at one point, and they're from like the majority of those tweets are from 10 years ago.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. It's pretty much just the content. You know, the content of it is very. It's. I think where a lot of people are coming up with it, it's not only that it was what they were about. It's the fact they were videos shared by somebody who was actually a convicted paedophile.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
know, and that's the kind of thing. So they're very, look, I appreciate the edgelord jokes as much as everyone else, but it's very hard to justify that, again, this is something that we've seen a lot happen in America, happen to people on the right, where stuff will be brought against them from years ago and then to be used against them and to get fired, and now it's happened to James Gunn, who's a critic, obviously, based on the left. So it seems to be like, thrown garbage at each other now is just it's not good. It's at what point do people change? At what point does the situation become all about context? And it's like, yeah, they were offensive jokes, but at the end of the day they're only jokes, and that's the kind of thing. It wasn't like he actually did anything. For me, something much more disturbing actually came out recently with Dan Harmon, who's the creator of Rick and Morty. Yeah, for me, that's far worse.
Yeah, I think what was interesting was how Adult Swim handled the Dan Harmon situation. Because they came out and said, well, we talked with Dan, and Dan understands that what he said wasn't was the wrong thing to say, and he has apologized for it, and he's clearly a different person from the person who made those comments in 2009.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the kind of thing. It's like social media. I think has a lot to play into it here. Context is king, and I think on both sides of this is what happens when stuff gets politicised. I think on both sides of the political alley, it's like, look, just let stuff go. You know, particularly after it's been 10 years and, you know, it was a joke. You know, now compared to the James Gunn thing, the guy who actually shared these videos, you know, was a criminal and he was, you know, punished for that. And I think that's exactly what should have happened. But James Gunn getting fired for something that, you know, was a joke is kind of ridiculous, you know. But I have heard today that he might be brought back.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I do think that there seems to be enough people who are supporting him at this point in time. Like, I don't know if you've seen the tweets from Dave Bautista, the guy who plays Drax the Destroyer.
Yes,
who has been very, very vocal about him being fired, and said that, like, by saying that it's like, you know, like I've seen a tweet from where he said, "I think today I'll find a good person who spreads the message of equality, unity, sacrifice, responsibility, love, family, forgiveness, redemption, misfit child, female empowerment, and I'll ruin his life. I'll go ahead and empower some fascists while I'm at it." And disclaimer for morons and future viewers, I'm actually joking.
Yeah.
You know, because he has to do that, unfortunately, in this day and age.
Yeah. Again, though, it's just like, I think all across the board, people need to stop doing this. You know, like, the kind of people 10 years ago, like, this is like, you know, to bring it much down, it's like someone being fired for something they said on Bebo back in 2006. You know, it's like, come on, guys. You know, it's like, ridiculous. Context, you know, again, watch the trauma films. There's some really dodgy stuff that we can't say at 5 p.m. on a Saturday in those movies, you know. So.
Yeah, I think it's just something, though, where, like, at this point, like, I think when it comes to, like, one of the main reasons I heard about him being fired by Disney was the fact that there's the whole merger thing going on, and that that was a major factor in it, and they were just trying to make sure that their image was as clean as humanly possible.
Yeah.
But it's a bit ridiculous to do it for someone who had already apologized for his offensive tweets, you know, years ago, and no one seemed to care then.
Well,
you know?
Well, coming into it today, it does look like he'll probably be brought back. Like, there's a high possibility. Just, like, again, he did something wrong, but wrong by today's standards, and wrong wrong out of context. And obviously, you know, it's just some stuff that you shouldn't joke about. But I think he's learned his lesson and won't do it again. You know,
absolutely. But I mean, like, he'd learned his lesson years ago, which is the thing that's, like, ridiculous about it, is that, like, he's being punished for something that he's already been remorseful for.
Yeah, it's just
you know,
it's just the way it is. You know, it's a different world. But speaking of which, just to transition here into the next story that's related, the Disney Fox merger is complete. It is complete. Today it was announced. Today it was announced that the shareholders, the stockholders, and all the higher ups have okayed it. And not only that, it looks the first two big names from, you know, what we'd be concerned about would be Galactus and Silver Surfer are the first two properties to come into the new Marvel the Marvel cinematic universe. Yeah, so that's huge, man. That's huge, and it's like apparently 2012. There was talks about this is what they wanted to go with first and what they wanted to lead into. But now it really seems to be the case that, you know, there's probably going to be a Galactus movie, or actually, funny enough, Silver Surfer was supposed to be in Infinity War, but that was one of the rumors. So maybe at the end of Avengers 4, we'll see Silver Surfer coming in and followed up by Galactus. So that's a game changer.
That could definitely be a possibility.
Yeah,
because like Galactus is one of those huge threats. I don't know if he's as huge as Thanos would be, but still, you know.
Yeah,
very big for.
Well, here's the thing, you know, a lot of the goals now towards the cinematic universe is more cosmic threats. So Galactus, you know, takes a while for Galactus to get here. So it would be Silver Surfer that obviously announces it. So I can definitely see him showing up, you know, having your Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and then having a Silver Surfer movie maybe leading into Avengers 5. And and for me, that's what I think they're going to do. But very exciting times, I have to say. You know, with this. Like people, yeah, there is obviously the fact that Disney now owns 40% of all box office ticket sales, which is crazy.
Oh yeah,
which is crazy, but it's still pretty cool, you know, because it opens up these opportunities to have these big event movies. And like obviously now next week, the 2nd is when Ant-Man opens up, so I'm looking forward to that. And that's the next kind of apparently that's leading heavily into Avengers 4.
Oh, I can't wait! I cannot wait for Ant-Man.
Yeah, like I love the first one personally.
Yeah, the first one's really good, but I just can't wait. I just can't wait to see it. Because like, I mean, especially with the run that the Marvel movies are on right now. I mean, like for the last year, 18 months, the worst film has been good to the best one being great. Like, it's incredible. You know?
It just seems to be the case that like everything Marvel do, even when it's not great, is still good.
Yep.
Which is a lot better than you could say for DC up until recently. But on that point, I do want to pivot into the two big news stories from San Diego Comic Con, which is obviously Aquaman, which looks very interesting, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about it.
Oh yeah, well, like it's just it looks to be completely different, and I think that's what they need to do. But also, what I'm excited about, and like very much so, Shazam. I cannot wait to see Shazam.
Yeah, I'm kind of in two minds about Shazam.
Sure.
Shazam looks like they've got a good understanding of the character, and it looks like they've got that they're going to kind of play on the main kind of gimmick of the character, and that he's like a 10-year-old boy who can, with one word, transform into a fully grown man with superpowers.
Who's stronger than Superman.
And like and it looks like they've nailed that. The problem is that like I have reservations that it might fail in execution from it. There's just something about it that has me a bit concerned that they might mess it up, you know?
There's always that possibility, but I think, you know, moving on from Justice League and all that other stuff, I figure they're just leaning heavy into let's try something different. Aquaman is something completely different. Shazam is something completely different, to the point of people, you know, don't even know who Shazam is, to be honest with you.
Oh no, it's great.
It's great.
It is really great.
But it's just, why not? You know, on the other hand, you have the Teen Titans thing, which looks ridiculous. So
yeah,
you know,
Teen Titans is going to either turn out to be surprisingly good or inevitably poor.
Yeah,
is kind of like, you know, I've seen people say it online, but I kind of agree with it. Is that like there are plenty of properties that you can kind of do an R-rated, mature content platform around with DC characters. The Titans is not that platform.
No. It's,
you know?
It's just ridiculous. You know, I
like, I'm not a fan of like Teen Titans Go, but I will concede that it's like Titans are way more that market than they are the mature content market. Like,
I agree, and you know, making everything dark and edgy makes it lose its impact. Now the Titans, yeah, he's Batman's son, but to be honest with you, I think Robin is Batman's son, but the movie that's coming out, the kids movie, the Teen Titans Go, and I'm not a Teen Titans Go fan, but that looks more like a Teen Titans movie that I'd watch, and it is one that I'm going to watch more than this other dark garbage, you know. And it's like, I have no interest.
It just looks like they're trying to make the Defenders, but do a worse job of it, like. Yeah,
and it's just not what we need nowadays, you know. The new Doctor Who, we'll get into that next week. That looks to be a hot mess. I'm interested to see what everybody thinks about that. We are drastically running out of time, sadly, because of all the technical issues. But next week we will have things more on track. We're gearing up for this interview now, all about Dublin Comic Con. It's happening in 2 weeks. And Bryn, I can't wait, man. It's going to be super excited. We're going to be there. We're going to be on the ground. So
it's going to be so great.
Yeah, we'll have Vox Pop. So, you know, if you guys are there, come over, say hey, and we'd love to hear what you guys think about it. We're going to be doing interviews and getting all that kind of stuff from panels and all the stuff that you would expect from this show. So, Bryn, is there anything you'd like to do? Like to say before we go into this interview?
No, I'm just going to say that I recently watched The Expanse season 3 finale, and it's friggin' brilliant. If you haven't started watching The Expanse and you like science fiction, I don't know what you're doing with your time, because frankly, it is by far the best sci-fi show, science fiction show on television these days. So
yeah, I have to check it out. It's still on my to watch list. All right, guys, it's time for this interview with DCC head coordinator Olivia Fahy. Check it out. Alright guys, and we are joined on the line by DCC coordinator and PR representative, Olivia Fahy. How are things, Olivia?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing good. Doing good. Surviving.
Thanks for joining us on this Saturday. We appreciate it.
No problem. Well, sure. Things are a bit cray-cray here at Comic Con HQ, so Saturday pretty much suited us a bit better.
Oh, great. Well, it's almost 2 weeks to the day now where things are going to kick off. So this event's looking to be one of the biggest ones ever. I've seen a lot of buzz, more so than any other year. It seems like, when Comic-Con, when I first started going to Dublin Comic Con, it was, kind of hushed tones, and then it kind of grew and it grew and it grew, and now it's, a big event that you see ads for and all that kind of stuff. It's honestly great to see. So how have you felt seeing the progression going forward?
Well, this is Comic-Con's 6th year. So Dublin Comic Con, they started off a little bit smaller out in Swords, and then moved to the convention centre in Dublin pretty soon afterwards, really, as they realised that they needed a larger space. I suppose it helps that being a geek is actually pretty cool these days. So as more awareness has sort of grown around the world, and especially in Ireland, then the Comic-Con experience has grown as well. So we'll be taking over all 5 floors of the convention centre in 2 weeks' time. So it's actually, it's pretty cool.
It's crazy, because I remember, when it was out in Swords, and, nobody was really aware of it or so that, or you kind of knew everybody from being at comic shops and all that kind of stuff. And now it's the cosplayer thing is huge. A lot more guests, a lot more casual fans as well. It's really kind of become an event of the summer.
It is, and what I always like to see is the families that come as well, and especially the ones that cosplay together. They're always really, really exciting to see. So there was one year we saw The Incredibles, and there was a Marvel sort of family together one year with the daughter was Thor. And it was just after female Thor had been launched by Marvel and things like that. So I was like, wow, you guys are really on top of this.
Well, let's go back a bit. How did you get started working with Dublin Comic Con?
So I actually work with Geek Ireland as well. So I basically got involved. I was asked to host a panel with Brian Krause a couple of years ago. And then from there, started helping out a little bit behind the scenes and working with the guys. And it basically just sort of grew from there. So I think since just when they launched KCON, that's when I really started to get more involved and do a bit more the press aspects. And I haven't really looked back now.
Well, how did you initially get started into geek culture? Working for Geek Ireland and stuff like that. You have to go pretty hardcore for that. So what was your gateway?
I'm excellent at ranting about films. And I was able to put that in writing. And then when I saw that Geek Ireland had an opening, it was pretty much kind of what I felt that that's where I should be. I'm a massive Star Wars fan. Ever since I was small, I actually have one of the voice-activated BB-8s in my house, and we call him the puppy because you can call his name and then he'll come into the room and follow you around the house. Great crack.
I need to get one of those.
Oh yeah, Disney Store, they're great. But yeah, it's between Star Wars, comic books. I'm a big Disney nerd myself as well, so the classic Disney and things like that. So it all sort of encompassed what I was sort of about. So that's kind of how I linked up with the Geek Ireland guys, and it all went from there.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, it seems to be one thing I've noticed though with Star Wars in particular, if you don't watch it when you're a kid, you can't really capture it. When you're trying to show it to somebody, here. Watch Empire, and it's not there.
There's one of the lads. He never saw them as a kid, and then we tried like when he used to live with us, and then we tried showing them to him before, and he was just like, "Nope, these are stupid." It's like, no, don't say that.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Stupid.
The best time to watch the original trilogy is when you're 5 to 8, and then you're locked for your fan for life.
But
I think I was about 10 or 11.
Still good.
Yeah, it was my cousin that had the 3 originals, and I was, I think I was over at his house over a weekend or something, or I was staying there because my mum was away, and we just blasted them out like through the weekend, and I was hooked, absolutely hooked.
Like I think with things like this magical period between like 4 and 12, where if you get into sci-fi or fantasy at that age, that's it, you're going to be hooked for life. Because like I know so many people who like started reading Tolkien and then just went further and further down into fantasy from there, to the point where some of them can speak Elvish fluently before they even watched the films, to go, those were accurate. And I'm going, okay, I didn't realize how much you were into this. Like,
yeah,
you know?
I even remember there being like there was like was it Elf Town? It was kind of like almost like a Facebook group, but it was like for fans of Lord of the Rings and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I think it like because I started going to like a few, because like a lot of my friends are massive into anime, so we went to anime cons here, and like I always found myself going, oh yeah, I know anime, and then going off to these cons and going, I have no idea what any of these things are.
Yeah, no, you see it's like the tip of the iceberg. You're like, yeah, I know Naruto and Yu-Gi-Oh and that, and you're like, oh my god, it goes deeper.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's so much more than like Pokemon and Digimon and things like that.
But it's like it's even like there's so much more than even just like Attack on Titan. You know, like, you know, you can even if you're into like some of the biggest animes now, there still are stuff that like, there are people who are obsessed with even more obscure stuff. You know, and like it's kind of incredible to see, even like in a country like Ireland where it's so small, but there's still such like a dedicated fan base for these, like a dedicated fan base here for stuff for like obscure sci-fi and fantasy like anime.
There is, yeah, and like we definitely saw it because we had our anime edition back at Easter weekend, and we were really blown away by just how much. Well, one, that people enjoyed it. We were very happy that they said we'd done a good job, but also just how many people were there. Like it was going to be like our smaller version. We only had like 3 floors and things like that, and it's kind of like a mini edition to the big event in August. But the numbers blew us away, and everyone had such good feedback from it as well, that we're actually bringing back some of the areas that we had there. We're bringing them back for August because they worked out so well.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Olivia, I was there. I was actually talking to yourself at the event, and from being on the ground, people really enjoyed it. You know, like it was that's when I first started to realize that you know, anime has penetrated so deep in Ireland as far as like the geek culture kind of thing, where you can hold an anime convention along the smaller line, and it just, people really enjoyed it. Like everyone I was talking to were having a great time. The vendors, you know, they made bank on there as well. So it wasn't an incredible. It felt different. It felt different than the one in August, but in a really good way. So fair play to you. That was great.
No, thank you.
Okay, so just going on to the mission statement of what you guys tried to do. What's the overall ethos of the event? You know, if you were to boil it down into a sentence.
Well, to build a community, basically. Like we're fans ourselves, and the reason why. So Derek and Carl are the heads of Dublin Comic Con, and they basically decided to start hosting an event like this because around the time there wasn't really that many large events, and they were kind of like, oh well, we're a bit fed up of going abroad and having to spend loads of money to get like to the States to try and experience something like this. So they decided to try and host something themselves here, and basically it just sort of took off from there. So we're still all about like building the community, and basically those of us that work with DCC and the fans that religiously attend all of our events, it is basically just one big family, and you always see the same faces. Sometimes you see some new faces, and then you'll see them coming again and again, and it's always really nice just to sort of build up a big happy, geeky community.
All right. Well, that's it. It's like, particularly in a, it's gone from the internet where it'd be a message board and you'd have to like organize everything, to now it's with social media where you can kind of just have these groups, and then when you have a place to go, like with Comic-Con or signings or something like that, you kind of meet the same people. And I think having the focal point is really cool, and that's pretty much what Dublin Comic Con has become. Because I know there's other ones as well, but in my experience, I'm not just saying this because you're on the line. Dublin Comic Con is the best one that I've gone to. In Ireland, but also abroad as well, because it doesn't have that, as you said, community. It doesn't have that feel that that's like, well, this is run properly. This is really professional, and also it's fun. And the panels and guests and stuff like that. You actually, it's not only a family day out, but it's also, if you're if you're more hardcore, there's always something there for you. You seem to cater for everybody.
Yeah, that's what we try, and especially with the fan panels as well. We always try and have like a nice variety, and there usually is a great variety that's applied for. So this year I think we also have some cosplay panels as well, which is going to be new for the August edition, but that's something that we brought in from the anime edition. Super fun.
And you have a Gundam section as well, and it's like, yes, that's amazing. It's always fun,
I won't be able to get them away from the Gundam section.
No, I've actually got. I've actually got Bryn into Gundam as well. I'm like, it's like a bonsai tree. It's the most relaxing thing in the world. You just sit there and you have a good time. I literally have like 6 boxes of Gundams. I'm like, I will finish you eventually. But speaking of personal highlights, Olivia, and I think that's the big takeaway from events like this. It's not the event itself; it's what you get out of it. As an organizer, but also as a fan, what have been the personal highlights for you as far as guests, random moments, or anything like that?
Oh, that's really difficult. I'd say like for me personally, my first panel was probably like my first guest panel was a really, really big thing for me. And especially because it was Brian Krause, and I was such a massive Charmed fan growing up, and well, basically when it was being shown on loop on E4, it was great. But yeah, so for me it was probably like the first panel really just sort of got me hooked. Last year was great fun between KCON and DCC in August as well, and like this year just may top everything, just because like we've got such an eclectic group coming, and it's just going to be it's just gonna be so much fun. I'm really like, as much as like I'm kind of stressed as well, just trying to get everything organized. It is going to be so much fun at the weekend.
Oh yeah, no, it's just it seems like along with everything else that's there, you have kind of added so much. Like obviously there's the standard trade halls, craft tables, interactive sets, but now there's the cosplay village, which, as you said, seems to have found its way in from the anime edition. But the panels as well, you guys have some of the best panels as well, and then the guests. Like, I was going through this before we went on, and I was fanboying out that Carl Urban's going to be there. My sister is freaking out that Laurie Petty's going to be there because she's a big Tank Girl fan, and as I said, she's a peripheral nerd, so you have a sale there solely for her, which is crazy.
We do, yeah. And we also have for the traditional Star Trek fans, Michael Dorn, but also fans of the Orville. We've got Peter Macon, who plays Fortis in the Orville. He's also coming over as well, and so it's going to be kind of fun to see how the Star Trek and the Orville fans sort of react, because I know that's been a hot topic in the culture for the last year, is the Orville versus Star Trek Discovery and things like that.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I haven't been able to have a look at any of the panels that are coming up. Can you give us a sneak peek of any panels that are on the docket?
Well, Dino Guy, Sean Markey, he's going to be on Saturday. The time has just slipped my mind because I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me. He is going to be doing some of the best dinosaur fights and who won them and things like that. So he started doing panels at DCC this time last year. And his first one was in the smaller panel room, was full. We moved him to the larger panel room at Anime Edition. It was full. So he's in the large panel room again this year. and it just seems to be growing and growing and growing. Then on Sunday, just before Michael Dorn's panel, Star Trek Ireland are going to be discussing all things Star Trek, so it's going to be a kind of like a nice little warm-up in one of the smaller panel rooms before Michael Dorn's panel in the main auditorium as well. So it has a nice little flow going on to it. And of course, Geek Ireland have their own panel on the Sunday evening, which I should probably mention. List for Glory is what we called it. So it's going to be just a bit of a chit chat of like your top 5 whatevers, and we're going to try and compile a list with the audience, and then we'll have it up on the website the following week.
Oh, very cool. That's very cool. Yeah, whoa, that's a that's a packed panel, packed event for this spring. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds incredible.
And that's only 3 of them.
Yeah, it's only 3 of them, but I can't think of what I don't want to see. So
yeah, that's always the challenge. You're like, which do I want to miss out on more?
This is how normal people must feel about going to festivals and going, I don't know which band I want to see.
Oh my god! Exactly. And then there's also the interactive stuff as well. You guys do kind of showcase indie game developers, a lot of independent artists as well, some really good art in the trade halls, and there's just, and then of course there's like, if you're into Magic or anything like that as well, there's always some good games there as well. I don't like to play Magic at the event because I get beaten so badly. So I'm like, no, I just, there's only so much of an impact that my pride can take. But there's something for everyone, guys, and I'm really looking forward to Olivia. It's going to be a lot of fun. But just before we wrap up here, so if someone has never been to one of these before, ever, and they're kind of on the verge of going, what would you say to them?
I would say that it is probably one of the most fun weekends you'll ever have, whether you just go on a Saturday or a Sunday. There's something, like you said, there is something for everyone. If you just want to spend a load of money and buy all of the geeky things to put into your geek corner in your house and things like that, you've got like the trade hall. We also have like a little Lego area that we're going to have this year. So for families, we're going to try and keep it to just the kids building the Lego. So just a heads up to all the parents who would probably sit down and want to be building a load of stuff. Let's try and keep it to the kids, but we might let it to play, maybe. So there's that event, like the games, the artists. Like I actually, every time I go, I always say, don't buy any more artwork. Don't buy any more artwork. And I always come home with more artwork.
The struggle is real.
It's so difficult because you just see so many amazingly talented people. There was a girl there last year. I actually met her at KCON, and then come DCC, I was buying wands off her, and she made one especially for my little sister for her birthday as well. Oh, really? So that was a really nice thing. But like you just get to meet so many lovely people. It's a really nice day, and of course, if we have like some guests on that you are a massive fan of, you get the opportunity to meet them, to get a photograph taken with them, to get an autograph, things like that. And it's so much fun. It's one of those things where I say to people, you won't be able to know exactly what it's like until you try it. And I've said that to a few people this year, and they've actually volunteered to come and join in on the fun, which is great. So I'm looking forward to hearing what they think of it.
Oh, fantastic! And just on that point as well, you guys have been good enough to actually give us some tickets for the show. On the show for the event. So that's really cool, Olivia. So if you want to kind of tell our listeners about what you've given us.
So we have a pair of tickets to give away for Saturday, and we have a pair of tickets to give away for Sunday. So you don't have to worry about trying to choose between the two. You can try and win the tickets for your preferred day.
Yeah, and we're going to be running this competition over the next couple of weeks, and then giving them away the week before. So Olivia, thank you so much, and thank you so much for to the guys over in Dublin Comic Con, because you guys have been fantastic, and we really appreciate talking with you. So thanks so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me on. I look forward to seeing you guys in 2 weeks.
Alright guys, as promised, here is the press panel from the DCC Anime Comic Con back around Easter time. Check it out.
grateful for it. I don't know that I could work in a vacuum at this point. I don't know that I could go to work in my underwear.
Well, you know, there's two sides of at least with the cartoon stuff. For me, is I'm either presented with the visual. Sometimes they'll play the original voice if it's Japanese, and of course cultures are different in terms of what we think is funny, what we think, like for instance, the Japanese might have a character that's named Tiny, right? And he's got a big voice like this, and that's, you know, or here, you know, Tiny might be the big fat guy and he has a high voice. So it's like, you know, you go against the type that they might have originally done. But then also with things that are sort of prelay, where we record the voices first, we're given sides where we might see a drawing of the character and a little description of what they're about. So we have something to go on. Well, I'll give you an example of the show Kirby. I don't know if you ever saw Kirby. Okay, but I play the Meta Knight, which is a Spanish Antonio Banderas type of character, and he has no lip flap. He's just a helmet, right? You don't see his face at all. And so they brought me in and they said, Eric, we want you to play this like a Clint Eastwood type thing because we know you can do that. And I said, it's going to sound too much like Kaiba. That's what I'm doing on Yu-Gi-Oh! And they're like, oh, okay. I said, well, what if he's Antonio Banderas? And they said, Spanish? I said, yeah. And they said, why would he be Spanish? And I said, why wouldn't he be? And they said, all right, that's a good idea. Now, this wasn't on the sides. This was just a suggestion because I thought, you know, if I was going to do it sexy like this, no, it would be very good. No, yes, yes. So I did it like that, and there was no lip flap. So I could take big pauses and say things like this because there was no lip flap. And so years later, I'm at a convention in Miami, Florida. And this group of young guys come up to me and they say, did you play Meta Knight back in the day on Kirby? I'm like, yeah. We just want to thank you for that was the only character on Saturday mornings that sounded like us that didn't make fun of us. And I didn't even think of it that way. But you know, there's so many stereotypes that we have in these kinds of shows, and because things don't sort of follow through in terms of different cultures. There's some very, there's a character called called Jinx on Pokemon, which is basically blackface. We wouldn't air it in America. We're like, we can't air that. This character cannot be on our show. And they were like, what are you talking about? The Japanese were like, what are you talking about? Because that was not racist to them. It was racist to us. So the fact that I played a Spanish character that was cool was my idea, but it was off of I pulled it out of my own experience of that's as cool as Clint Eastwood, and that may be even cooler.
A lot of times having any kind of visuals helps because, you know, if I'm going into audition for a game or something, a lot of times we're not going to see anything. Sometimes we will hear the original voice for reference, sometimes we won't if it's just an audition, so having a picture is very helpful. I've worked on games as well where they say you don't have to match the original, but sometimes just hearing it, especially just to see like how big they're going. A lot of times for like fight efforts and stuff like that, they want us to hear it so that we can match like timing and intensity and stuff like that. And I don't know, I like to look at, obviously we're not playing off the other actors, but I like to look at the lines that come before mine in the script so I can know what I'm reacting to. You know, they say that acting is reacting, and I think that's very true because you know, how I'm responding to someone else, it's you can't do it in a vacuum, essentially.
DC, how about you?
I just let the drug that I've taken that day dictate the character. So,
it's good that you end with him.
It's timed out well for me, you know.
Like some really good mescaline that will like really drain you. Yeah. Really like some ether as well, like a nice hanky of ether and just take a huff. While they're here. Okay, I think that's about it. Do we have any final questions from the crowd? Graham. Is that okay? Oh, I know. Okay. Do you want to go? You can go first. Make it quick.
Yeah. Oh crap. So you all are part of very passionate projects, from live action to video game and that. What's been the biggest experience from fans? Like the most impactful fan you've met?
It was an orgy, and it started with. Sorry, I ruined it. I'm sorry. It's supposed to be the button. I forgot. I'm sorry.
I used to. I still do. I try to answer all fan mail. It just takes me a little bit of time, but I even before like Facebook and stuff like that, with just basic email, I would try to answer all the fan mail because I know I'm a fan myself of many things, and I know what that means. So I was at a convention, and this young woman came up to me, and she was probably in her early 30s, and she said, "You don't remember me, but when I was in 5th grade, I wrote you an interview, a series of questions, and I didn't think you would respond, but you did, and I had just changed schools, and I had no friends, and I thought if I could get someone like you to do my class paper, it would get me friends." And I was like, wow, she said, "So you answered the questions, I read it in class, and I got it, and I got a good grade on it, but then everyone thought I was really cool because I knew you." And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And she said, yeah, and it changed my life in that school. And she said, "And I brought the paper if you would sign it for me." And I was floored. I mean, we joke around about the fact that we work on this kind of stuff. But it is definitely humbling when you see that, sometimes we are their friends. I had that growing up. I was, only child. My mom was a single mom, and I was in front of that television. If I had a chance to meet some of those people I grew up watching, that would have been, Adam West was a friend of mine by watching him on television. That I'm looking at Batman there. It's like things like that. So never take that for granted. So that's like one of many stories like that. I feel like we make a difference sometimes where we don't realize that we do. So that meant a lot to me.
Seth, how about you? I've had people come up to me who want me to marry them.
Sorry, this is the first time I met you.
It's legal in Ireland, so
well, there we go. It's all about the 21st century, yeah. So I've gotten that, and I've actually thought about going online and becoming ordained and seeing what it would be like to marry some fans. But yeah, I've had this one couple in particular who invited me to their ranch in Texas, and they were willing to fly me out and my family out. They were willing to put me up. They wanted to pay me. They wanted to do all of this stuff just so that they could have Father Gabriel officiate their wedding. I was like, that's strange. But okay. No, I did not do it. I think I may have reported them to the local authorities. No, I didn't do it because we have yet to really deal with God on the show. And it seems to me I would kind of be jumping the shark if we didn't have something like that on the show first. If Father Gabriel was joining people together, in a union under the eyes of God on the show, then perhaps I could feel like there was a little bit more leeway for me to do that off camera. But until that happens, I feel like I would just be kind of doing something kind of unholy.
That's very responsible to the character. I'm impressed with that. Yeah, I think that's commendable. That's really
DC and Kira, any thoughts?
Well, I can say that Nier Automata fans have just been so incredible. Like, I am blown away because I worked on a lot of projects, but nothing has even come close to a fraction of what I've gotten from this game and how devoted the fan base is and the things that they've done for the cast. They've sent us gifts. They wrote us really heartfelt letters. They made us stuff. It's incredible, and people, I think the reason isn't necessarily because of our performances. It's because the game touched them in a very emotional way. It's a game that the creator isn't afraid to break the players' hearts and make them question everything about life and cry a lot. So, I think this people really connected emotionally with the characters, and so they kind of see us as an extension of that and say, it's amazing just the stuff that we've gotten.
I think that's what it is. It's like we're like goodwill representatives or something, the custodians of that, and so that has probably been the most amazing thing about the fan stuff, is that realizing that I'm just representing something, and that little gestures that I do have an impact in their lives in such a positive way. That's kind of it's awe-inspiring. So even though I'll still go bash Trump and cuss and whatnot on my Twitter feed, it's at least still being real, being who I am, but also knowing that a kind gesture of just someone's having a bad day or what have you, or saying something suicidal. Maybe it's just to get my attention on Twitter, but then tweeting something back about just keeping support, or believing in yourself and seeking help or what have you. That not only helps them, all the other fans that see that too, then it kind of reverberates with them as well. And it's like, and I'm just, again, it's not DC Douglas did something. It's just I'm the representative of Albert Wesker or Legion from Mass Effect or something like that, and that is kind of mind blowing and cool. Yeah.
Final question.
I was actually just kind of a general question. I was wondering, do you ever get attached to a series that you either voice or you perform in? Because I know for set, Teen Wolf has recently kind of ended.
Yes.
And in anime and in voice acting, you always know that there's only a specific amount of episodes, and it either goes on or doesn't. It kind of depends on the audience. So I was just kind of wondering, do you get attached to your character and you get kind of sad to see them go, or actually sad for the show itself?
I was very attached to playing Dr. Deaton and being on Teen Wolf. It selfishly it kept me young, working with all those young actors. It would remind me of the excitement of acting, just how exciting acting is as a profession, and the possibilities of it. They have yet to, at least at that point, they had yet to really be beaten down by the industry and to become jaded and dark and cynical. So it was great for me to be able to go into that environment and try to shed my own cynicism and shed my own whatever heartbreak may have happened over not getting cast in something because I wasn't tall enough or dark enough or light enough or whatever the fuck enough. Tell him. So the show helped to keep me young, and I miss having that in my life, actually.
Obviously, working on a show like Pokemon and being on it for 10 years and helping sort of create this monster that it is, this pocket monster.
I get it.
I definitely was disappointed that I didn't continue playing those characters, but I also feel like I established those characters, and to be part of sort of pop culture history is pretty cool. I do like that part of it, but like anything, it can't go on forever. I was really happy that Kaiba is still, I get to play Kaiba anytime he's needed, which is great. But as I said, these are things that, the stories are going to end, or maybe they don't end. I mean, we never thought we'd come back together and do anything that was the original cast of Yu-Gi-Oh! That was 15 years ago, right? Or 17 years ago, I don't even know. But they were like, by the way, we're bringing you all back because it's the most popular story arc with the fans, and we're going to make a feature film. Because for years they said, they're not doing it anymore. It's done. It's done. They don't want to talk about Kaiba anymore. No, it's done. It's done. And then, of course, the entire movie's about Kaiba, right? So, you're sitting at home going, oh, I have little action figures of Brock and James and Kaiba that sit on my mixing board at home. And they're there with me. They hang out with me. I've got all the swag and stuff like that. I call it my wall of shame. It's got all the movie posters, stuff like that. But it's like, and I'll end with this. There's a great song by Squeeze, a band from the 80s, called If I Didn't Love You, I'd Hate You. And this is my new mantra. There's a line in that song that says, singles remind me of kisses, albums remind me of plans. We make these plans that never end up the way we think they're going to end up, right? You could be the most responsible person in the world and say, I'm going to be doing this thing for the rest, and it's just it never works out that way, good or bad. So we need to start focusing on the kisses, which are the moments today. Right? Enjoy the moment, because it might not be there tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that that's a negative. If we're always stressing about what's not going to be there tomorrow, we don't enjoy the moment. So that's just something to think about.
Okay. Eric will also have a kissing booth.
All right, I think we'll leave it there. So, guys, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright guys, hope you enjoyed that 3-part panel from the last round of the DCC anime convention. Brynn, is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up this week?
No, but if you don't hear from us in the next 2 weeks, we'll hopefully see you at Comic Con.
Awesome. Alright guys, we'll talk to you next week here on Phoenix 92.5 FM on Nerd to Know basis.